Hey everybody! Sorry we're getting started here a little bit late, but we're going to do the news now. Weekly news recap for the 23rd to 29th of May 2022. Even pushing the start time for this later. I still overslept. The sleep schedule. The sleep schedule is awful, and I'm never going to recover from it. But okay. Anyway, we'll jump in. So, starting off, we have a couple of teasers and a couple of announcements. So we have Star Wars Jedi Survivor, which will be the sequel to Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. So we're returning Callisto and the kind of more difficult version of the Star Wars melee games. Like, it was kind of attributed to something like Dark Souls, but it's not really. Like, it doesn't have the same comedic timing, honestly, as Dark Souls, and it was kind of a bit janky. Fallen Order, so hopefully they'll have fixed that. This trailer does not show any gameplay or anything like that, just is setting up story stuff. We have once again lost our lightsaber, it would seem, or once again, like, depowered, because, you know, no game can never let you have a sequel where you actually retain the powers you had in the first game. You need to get them all again. And then we have somebody in a back to tank who I think is probably... Spoilers. I think it's probably Trilla, even though the hair is wrong. It's either Trilla or it's our master from the first game. It's one or the other, but I don't know who. On the other hand, this is like you can see that this is one, the hair is wrong, and Trilla is almost certainly dead from the first game. But this is like, you know, long abandoned back to tank area. So it's actually, to be honest, it's probably not either of those. It's probably somebody else who we don't know whether they'll factor into the full game or not. I don't know. Or the Star Wars mythology, as it were. Anyway, that's coming some stage next year. Then we have Inquisitor, which is a adaptation of a Polish fantasy novel, and basically the pretense for this is, what if when Jesus rose on the third day he chose violence instead? So Jesus did not ascend into heaven and, you know, any of that stuff. He decided to stay here and become a despot, pretty much. So that's what the basic thrust of this game is. You are an inquisitor, one of Jesus's evil inquisitors, and you are going about, you know, making sure people are following the word of the Lord and so on. It's got pretty heavy Witcher vibes to it, and from what people have told me, the books themselves also have pretty heavy Witcher vibes too. But it doesn't take itself terribly seriously, so there might be a bit of not satire exactly, but there might be a bit of like dumb shit happening. I mean, it's dumb already, right? The Jesus chooses violence, but whatever. It's a funny premise. Let's go with it. Yeah, so we'll see how that turns out. Again, I don't think that's going to be out until sometime next year either. And some updates. So there have been replaced this game that looked incredible. This incredible 2.5D cyberpunk looking thing. Skip ahead a little bit. Has been delayed, unfortunately. So the developers are part Belarusian and part Ukraine. They're spread across a couple of different studios, and there's all of the shit that's happening in Ukraine right now, with the war happening there. It's obviously impacted their development ability, so yeah, the game's been delayed. It'll be next year instead. Which, you know, it's a shame, but also it's, you know, it can't exactly be surprising. I'm honestly shocked they're even still actually working on it. I would have thought they were like, you know what, let's get the fuck out of here first, and maybe then we'll start developing it again. But okay. Kudos to them for staying, I guess. That's nuts. I'm sure they probably lost a couple of developers to like war and militia. You know, they are recruiting people in the Ukraine and so on, so that is obviously going to have an impact on their development ability. But hopefully it'll come out still, and everyone will be okay. But yeah, that's been delayed to next year. And the Callisto Protocol, which is the Dead Space spiritual successor from the former developers of Visceral, who went on to found Striking Distance. Also, 18's, I guess, warning for this trailer because it gets pretty gruesome. So the Callisto Protocol is no longer part of the PUBG universe. Were you also shocked it was part of the PUBG universe? Because I was. I honestly kept forgetting that it was part of that. So the issue there is that the founding people, it's some group that starts with a K. I forget what it is now. It's not Callisto. Callisto starts with a C. Anyway, who founded Striking Distance, or funded it, shall we say, came to them with the idea that there was this big lore for PUBG, and like, how did PUBG get started, and why was it built, and so on. And they were like, here's our big lore book for it. You know, do you want to sit in on that? And they're like, yeah, okay, that might be interesting. And further down the line, they're like, hang on, the Callisto Protocol stuff is like so far removed from PUBG. Like, it's very tenuous connection. So they're basically saying, you know what? Let's not bother. Let's just say it's not part of PUBG, and we'll do our own thing instead. So that's the news for that. I guess I thought we were getting news that was like a release date for this game, but no, that's not what happened. The news we got was that it's not part of PUBG anymore. Great. When is the game out, please? Anyway, that's a pretty horrible trailer. It actually gets even worse if you want to hang around and watch the rest of that. Okay, new releases for this week. So first up, we have Sniper Elite 5. So normally when I show off new releases, they're usually games that I actually am interested in playing. So normally when I would say, hey, no new releases this week, it's not that no games came out. It was that no games I was particularly interested in came out. Now, I haven't played any of the other Sniper Elite games because, well, a number of reasons is that they look boring. And I'm not particularly interested in the World War II aesthetic, you know, that setting. I just don't care for it. It's boring, to me at least. But Sniper Elite 5 is a little bit different. It's still World War II, yes, you can't really get away from that, unfortunately, but it is a lot more like Hitman. Like, the other Sniper Elite games were very linear, very level based. You know, you had like point A to point B to point C and so on. Whereas Sniper Elite 5 is like, here's a big map and here's some missions to do in the big map. Off you go. You know, so it's a lot more open-ended, and there's a lot more variety, and there's a lot more choice in how you go about handling different areas. So I'm very interested in it now, despite it still being part of World War II, which I kind of wish you would like modernize it. But I guess modern technology would maybe trivialize being a roaming sniper guy. I don't know. Anyway. Then we have also Hardspace Shipbreaker, which is a kind of chill game where you are a contractor going out and breaking down these big ships for parts, stuff like that. So it's mostly about like cutting up all these different freighters and whatever for their parts and trying to get the best salvage you can. It just looks interesting. You know, like, I don't think I've seen anything like this before. So I'd be intrigued to give it a shot. It was in early access for a good while, and it is now out of early access. So normally I don't touch a game if it's still in early access. There have been a lot of games where I've been really, really tempted to do it, like Hades, Baldur's Gate 3, and V Rising, which I've heard a lot about, the vampire game. But no, they're in early access. I don't touch them. Finish your game and then I will play it. That's basically how I do it. I will not be your QA. I will not be your unpaid QA. I've done enough of that myself. I'm not doing it again in my downtime as well. But yeah, that's Hardspace Shipbreaker. I'm not, like, it has some kind of story attached to it, but I think most of it is just, hey, can you get this salvage out, you know, in a way that gets you lots of money and so on. I don't know. It's an intriguing premise to me. Okay, it is now time to talk about the worst parts of video games, the video game industry. So, after quite the ordeal and quite the fight and a long time coming, finally, Raven Software's QA team has formed a union, and it is now the first union at a major US studio. It's not the first gaming union, but it is the first one at like a big studio like Activision. So, quality assurance staff at its Raven Software studio voted to unionize. It was 19-3 something, and some of those votes were challenged as well. Anyway, under the label Game Workers Alliance, the group is now legally recognized by the National Labor Relations Board of the United States and can proceed to negotiate its first contract with Activision Blizzard. That'll be fun. Can't wait to hear how that one goes. From a member of the GWA, Activision Blizzard worked tirelessly to undermine our efforts to establish our union, but we persevered. Now that we've won our election, it is our duty to protect these foundational values on which our union stands. Activision Blizzard spokesman was like, yeah, we respect and all that, but like, you know, we believe that an important decision that will impact the entire Raven Software studio of roughly 350 people should not be made by 19 Raven employees. No, it should be made by 7 board of directors instead. Anyway, is there more to that story, or is it just regaling us with all the bullshit that came with? Yeah, that's pretty much it. And then final quote: our biggest hope is that our union serves as inspiration for the growing movement of workers organizing at video game studios to create better games and build workplaces that reflect our values and empower all of us. So yeah, good news. Well, I guess we'll see how well they deal with negotiating with Activision Blizzard and Raven Software's upper management and so on. So that will be interesting. But yes, the first union at a major US studio, hopefully not the last one. There have been rumblings that like some Nintendo studios are looking into it, some BioWare studios looking into it, like almost all of them. No, not almost all of them should be looking into unionizing. Anyway, continuing with Activision though, SOC urges shareholders to vote against re-election of Activision Blizzard directors. So this isn't as big a news as it sounds, because the SOC are the SOC investment group are the same people who were like, Bobby gets paid too much and we should reduce his pay, and also he should step down and a bunch of other stuff. So it's not surprising that they also have this advice. But they're advising shareholders to vote against the re-election of several of the company's directors, including Bobby, Brian Kelly, Robert Morgado, Robert Cordy, Barry Meyer, and Peter Nolan, who've all come up on the weekly news recap at some point. They're all shady as fuck, especially Bobby. Anyway, in the letter, the SSC say that each director has failed either to recognize that Activision Blizzard for years maintained unsafe workplaces exhibiting frequent and repeated sexual harassment, sexual assault, and gender discrimination, or to appropriately address the company's frat house culture. Once it was publicly revealed, it is incumbent to hold these current directors accountable for their multiple failures to act and the resulting reputational harm and declining share price. So even if you don't buy into like the ethical part of it, their actions are actually reducing the worth of your shares. You should probably do something about that. And it's highlighted here by Games Industry's Danielle Partis. The SOC released a separate letter, this is a good while ago, that asked shareholders to vote against the Microsoft acquisition, which went through. So how much people actually listen to them is debatable. But yeah, they're not wrong. Guys can't do their job properly, have reduced the actual worth of your shares. You should probably not reward them for that. But they will. You know they will. Anyway. So EA is the latest to not take a stance on women's health, basically, in the United States. So EA, it couldn't take a stance on every public issue. Fuck you. And that being an inclusive company means being inclusive of all these points of view. That means sitting on the fence. That means not actually being inclusive. That means upholding the status quo. That's what that means. You can't be inclusive to people who think you are less of a person, who think you are, not worthy of your own bodily autonomy. You can't be inclusive to those kind of people. The same way you can't be inclusive to people who think you are a lesser person for the color of your skin, or for what's in your underpants, and so on. Like, there's no inclusion there. They are completely at odds with each other. You have to take a stance on something like that. Many employees called on the company to make a public statement, but the company only speaks out when it will actually have a positive impact. That's what it claims, at least. It's not the case, but whatever. The rest of this is kind of, I think... Yeah, it's just regaling, or recapping on why, employees wanted it. It's the Roe v. Wade thing, which I think we're all aware of, so we can probably skip that. Then there's a kind of interesting one here in that when the Black Lives Matter was kind of at its zenith, if you want, and a lot of companies were coming out in favor of it, dozens of studios and publishers, including EA, put out statements saying they supported the movement and calling for an end to systemic racism. Similarly, anytime Pride Month comes around, you could see all these studios come out and they put their rainbow fucking branding on, and it's like same thing. You're not including the people who are bigoted against them, So clearly you're able to pick and choose who you're including in this, and you're happy to including people who think women should not have control over their bodies. But okay. Some staffers feel that EA supports diversity and inclusivity when it's good PR. Yeah, no shit there. So yeah, they're the latest studio to not take a stance. So they're following Sony's idea of we'll just do this quietly and not bring attention to it, versus Microsoft, Bungie, and a couple of other studios who are like, no, this is bullshit. We should absolutely take a stance on this. Anyway, moving on. The PlayStation gender discrimination lawsuit comes back with a vengeance. So, previously, Emma Mayo, Majo, I don't know, tendered a lawsuit against Sony, alleging that PlayStation paid women less than men in similar jobs, that women were denied promotions, and that she was wrongfully fired soon after submitting a signed statement to Sony suggesting all of these things. This lawsuit was thrown out in that there was no material evidence to support any of it, but that some things could go forward, mainly the you were fired for submitting a statement. They were like, yeah, okay, we'll look into that, but the rest of it we're going to have to let go. Yes, so there's a new lawsuit, which basically has come back with like specific facts and has narrowed in its targeting, I guess. I don't know, my brain isn't working, sorry, I only just woke up. Anyway, this time it is seeking damages for all women who worked at PlayStation's California location below vice president level. So previously it was just for every woman who worked at PlayStation. Now it is, PlayStation across the US. Now it is PlayStation California below vice president. So it was much, much narrower. It's basically people she probably knew and trusts their accounts and whatever. Allegations in the new suit are said to be largely similar, however, this time, it explicitly incorporates more specific facts about the class-wide policies and practices at PlayStation which institutionalize gender-based discrimination and gender-based harassment. This also kind of tracks with a study that Deloitte did back in March that said Sony was found to have a very low percentage of women in management positions compared to its peers. So there might be something to this, and the fact that they've narrowed it to just the California locations, which is where she used to work, and potentially knows a lot of people there and knows how it worked and can actually point to very specific instances of it happening. So that this particular lawsuit might have a lot more traction than the last one did. Okay, we're sticking with Sony. So the PlayStation Plus whatever new thing is rolling out right now. It is in Asian territories at the moment, so we're getting an idea of how things are going to work. And big horrible stink here is that the PlayStation Classic games will be PAL. It'll be the PAL version rather than the NTSC version, and the PAL versions run at 50 Hz, whereas the NTSC versions run at 60 Hz. What does that mean? Okay, so for noob video game people who may not be aware of how this works, when PS1 and PS2 were a thing, and Super Nintendo and Mega Drive and so on, a lot of regions were broken up into PAL and NTSC. NTSC was mostly the United States, Japan, a good chunk of Asia, and so on. And PAL was pretty much Europe, and again, a couple of parts of Asia as well. This was to deal with how electricity kind of worked and how televisions worked at the time. Televisions in PAL regions did 50 Hz and multiples of 50 Hz. Refresh rates, so games had to be adjusted for that because 60 Hz wouldn't work properly. It would have a weird stuttering, so they had to reduce them to 50 Hz. Whereas United States TVs and NTSC regions ran at 60 Hz or multiples of 60 Hz. So it was fine when 60 Hz games ran on them. They ran correctly the way they were designed to be done. Remember, a lot of games at the time would have been developed in the United States or in Japan, specifically. Like, development has really spread out in the last 10 years or so, but at the time, it would have been almost primarily United States and Japan, which were NTSC. Games were designed at 60 Hz to run at 60 Hz, 60 frames per second, if you like. That's the way that goes. So when they were adjusted to have to run in PAL regions, the games were slowed down. So they were running at, 5/6 speed, as they should have been. Not something I was obviously really aware of because I was a kid, and the only games I could get my hands on were PAL versions anyway, so it never really affected me, if we like, because I was completely unaware that games were meant to be ever so slightly faster than this, but whatever. But the issue now is that most TVs now, like PAL and NTC isn't a thing anymore. Like, all games run the exact way they're supposed to because TVs have been homogenized, generalized. The technology, it's not really different. The refresh rates are all equivalent now, basically. So why the 50 hertz shit? Why is PAL doing the 50 hertz shit? Hey Melwin, happy Sunday to you too. How are you getting on? So why are they doing this, or why is this an issue? So the problem here is that most TVs now would expect 60 hertz or some multiple of 60 hertz, or 60 frames per second if you like. So having, or 30 frames per second, again, multiples of that kind of stuff. PAL at 50 hertz means it'll run at 25 frames per second, which is gonna look weird. There's gonna be stuttering, and the issue then is that there will be strange frame pacing. So what you're gonna see is stuttering, or every 10-ish frames or so, it will pause. Like, not noticeable, we're talking fractions of a second here, but they all add up. So that is a problem, which means, like, it's not a correct emulation of the software. It's going to have performance issues and so on. It will probably run slower for most people as well. So the games themselves will not run as fast as you may have remembered them to have run. Sony have, for their part, attempted to fix this, and what they are doing is frame blending. So they are inserting frames that don't actually exist into the running so that you don't get the pausing, you don't get the hitching, but what you do get then instead is ghosting on the image. So you'll get like a sort of ephemeral like frame. So anything that's moving will have like a ghosting to it. You might notice that on TVs that have that sports mode or something like that. If you watch something that isn't sports on those, you might see what those sportsing things are. Finally got a notification for your stream. Okay, well at least it's working. I don't know what's been happening. I haven't gotten notifications for your streams, and you haven't been getting notifications for mine. And it's like I'm still following. Like, my notifications are on. I'm not sure why we're not getting them, but whatever. Weird. So yeah, they're attempting to fix it, but their fixes aren't really working, basically. So it's not great. It's not a great look. But why did they pick PAL in the first place? You know, because there are NTSC versions of these games. So why did they go with PAL? We don't know, is the issue. The only thing we can say is they went with PAL is because the PAL versions, being European, would have had all the different European languages attached to it as well. So that would have worked for people who want to play in Spanish, French, German, Italian, and so on, Russian, whatever else. The eFigs bracket, English, French, Italian, German, Spanish is the typical one for localization. Whereas the PAL versions would have had all those, the NTC versions wouldn't have. So for something that's meant to be a global thing, they obviously make sense in that sense, but the fact that they're PAL versions means they are inferior, which isn't great. So that's some stuff from the PlayStation Plus rollout. There's some other things, like people who had stacked their PlayStation Plus discounts were then being hit with having to pay the difference if they wanted to upgrade, but that has since been attributed to a bug. I don't know how Sony is aware that you paid a discount. Should we be concerned that they know you paid a discounted price for your PlayStation Plus subscription? Maybe. That's a bit weird. They probably shouldn't know that. Some other stuff, the PS3 games. So the PS3 games for streaming, you won't have access to the DLC of those games. So how, again, as I pointed out for Azura's Wrath, the actual game's ending is in DLC. So it's like, can we only play half that game? Can we not play the whole game? So that's going to be interesting how they fix that. Not sure how that's going to work out. And then some other things like this 50 hertz, 60 hertz PAL NTSC thing. It doesn't affect all of the games. It affects all of Sony's first party games. So that's like Everybody's Golf, Wild Arms, Jumping Flash, Abe's Odyssey, a couple of other things. But it doesn't affect a couple of third party games. So Tekken 2, Siphon Filter, Mr. Driller, and Abe's Odyssey as well. Abe's Odyssey wasn't first party. I don't know why I thought it was. Seems that it doesn't affect them. So they are very much picking and choosing which games they decide to make PAL and which games they decide not to make PAL. So, I don't know why they're doing this. Just make it NTSC. And I don't know. Because obviously they have a good reason because of languages and so on, but, you know, I speak English. Give me the English version. It's fine. Give me the NTSC version. It's fine with me. I will speak the US English if I have to, if it means I don't have to play at 25 frames per second. Okay, some dumb stuff. So, Jetstream Sam meme appears to have given Metal Gear Rising Revengeance a boost. So, you may have seen the Jetstream Sam meme going around, which is where he kind of strokes his chin and gives his big shit-eating grin and says something absolutely stupid. But apparently that's given a big boost to people who have been reminded that Revengeance is a game, and a very good game. So has recently seen a rise of 1000% in its average concurrent Steam players. So wow, a lot of people are like, oh yeah, Revengeance. Let's go back and play that. That's a great game. And it is. And is this an excuse for me to also tell you to go back and play Revengeance? Yes, it is. Go play it. It's a good game. It's a very, very funny game. It is Metal Gear Solid without the stealth. It's just you play as Raiden, who is a cyborg ninja man who dances about the place cutting people in half a lot. And it has Jetstream Sam in it, who is incredible. Despite the shit-eating grin, he's a fantastic character. Anyway, go back and play Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. It's on PC if you need to get it, so you don't have to be locked into PS3 360. It's on PC as well. Okay, we'll leave you to loop. No, we'll leave Hardspace to loop. Okay. Anyway, that was the news for 23rd to the 29th of May 2022. So some interesting stuff there. Star Wars Survivor or whatever. Again, we don't know a whole lot about the game, so presumably it'll be very much the same as Fallen Order. Inquisitor, it just looks weird. It doesn't look weird, but its premise is strange. It's like Jesus rises on the third day, and instead of ascending into heaven, decides to stay here and become a tyrant. It's okay, cool. Let's go with that. That's pretty funny. So yeah, that'll be interesting. Returned getting delayed. I mean, considering their situation, the war in Ukraine, not surprising that it's been delayed. So hopefully everyone is okay there, and they can continue to work, or at least continue to live at the very least. And take your time with the game. It looks good, and I'll be happy to play it whenever it does come out. What was the last one? Callisto Protocol being part of PUBG. Why was that ever a thing? It's fine that they've decided, you know what? No, let's not be part of PUBG. Yeah, good. Why were you ever part of it in the first place? It made no sense. Okay, cool. New releases, Sniper Elite 5. Yeah, the kind of Hitman approach to their levels is very interesting. So, having very little interest in the series up to this point, and now I've decided, hey, that's a pretty cool idea. Let's go with that. I'll just drop a sniper in the middle of this giant map and give them a couple of missions to do. It's not linear. Not that linearity in games is not a bad thing. There are plenty of games that have, Doom, Devil May Cry, a lot of the older games that couldn't do open world stuff and had linear games. That's fine. They're good. When you script them well, they're great. The issue I had with Sniper Elite is that it was World War II, and I really don't like World War II settings. So I'm kind of at odds at myself on whether or not I will play Sniper Elite 5 because of the World War II setting, but I do like the idea of let's just drop you in a map and give you some sniper missions to do. Hardspace Shipbreaker, which we're looking at here a little bit, is again something intriguing because it's a salvage thing. It does have some kind of storyline behind it, but mostly it is just zero gravity salvage stuff, which just looks interesting. All the different tools that are that you can use and so on. So yeah, again, that was something that was in early access. It's now out of early access. News-wise, yeah, cool. We've got a union. Not we've got a union. Raven Software have a union. It's good to see it. Hopefully we'll see more of those. SOC saying that you shouldn't, re-elect the board of members of Activision. Yeah, again, that is something that they have been doing already. They have been saying that. Makes sense. No one's going to listen to them, but whatever. EA trying to have their cake and eat it too on the whole women's health thing in the United States. Not surprising from a big, conglomerate thing. No, they're not a conglomerate. A big, giant faceless corporation. We're not surprised. They only come out in favor of these things when it's good PR for them. When everyone else has already done all the work, basically. Or Black Lives Matter and Pride and so on. They're yeah, absolutely, we're definitely in favor of that because literally everybody was at the time. And still is. Or everyone who they would want to do business with anyway. Why the Roe v. Wade thing is a controversy at all, I don't understand. It's anyway, moving on from that. The Sony lawsuit or the PlayStation lawsuit, yeah, it's been re-upped and they've narrowed it so they can like target it a bit better. So I guess we'll see how that goes. And the PAL NTSC shit is like, they've done this before with the PS2 classic games that were released a good while ago. They were also PAL, and the weird slowdown in hitching was noticeable. Like you could see it happening. So it's shit that they've gone that way, you know, because there are emulators for the NTSC versions. I just wish they'd give you the option, you know? Just give us the option to do it. That would be fine. Anyway. And then, yeah, go play Revengeance. It's a good game. Go play it. Anyway, so next week on the channel. So I'm going to change a little bit on the channel. So we're going to swap out... we're going to swap out Vampire for Bayonetta. Because Bayonetta 3 will be out soon-ish, and I would like to get through Bayonetta 1 and 2 before that. I've never finished either, so I'd like to do that before Bayonetta 3 comes out. So what we're going to do is we're going to alternate with Vampire and Bayonetta on Tuesdays. When I say alternate, what I'm actually going to do is flip a coin on this show, on the weekly news recap, and then we'll decide which game we're going to play. Bayonetta looks cool. Hey, Doom Train Inc., how's it going? Bayonetta is a great game. Like, really, really good game. It's like... it's more Devil May Cry, but you have guns on your shoes. No, why wouldn't that be a cool thing? So basically, I'll flip a coin on the weekly news recap, and we'll decide whether or not we're playing Bayonetta or Vampire that week. And that's how that'll go. We're going to play Bayonetta anyway next week, just to get it started. But from then on, I'm going to flip a coin. We'll see which one. We'll see which game it's going to be. You'll see on Twitter, anyway, which one it'll be. I'll release the schedule, so you'll find out that way. But yeah, we'll be swapping that around. Otherwise, we're going to continue 2064 Read-Only Memories until that's finished, because The Quarry will be out soon enough. So I figure we'll finish 2064 by then, and then we'll just roll into The Quarry, and maybe alternate that with the Centennial Case as well. And then Xenoblade Chronicles on Saturdays will be continuing for a very long time, because that game is enormous, so we'll be doing that for a long time. And then there's the sequel anyway, so we'll be rolling into that too. Last Friday we played a bit of Eiyuden Chronicle Rising, which is a kind of interesting side-scrolling game where you have 3 characters you can play as, and you can swap them into combat. Like, they all have their own face button associated with them. So square is one character's attacks, triangle is another character's attacks, circle is another character's attacks, and you can just alternate that way. And they will like swap in and tag in on each other for combat. It's really satisfying when it works. Because it doesn't always work. But yeah, it was an interesting one. You can go back and look at that. The VOD is over on YouTube. Under my face, it's the same link. It's always the same link, Doomtrain 5. Anyway, that's it from me for the weekly news recap, 23rd to 29th of May 2022. Hopefully see some of you for Bayonetta this week, or 2064 Read-Only Memories, or Xenoblade Chronicles on the weekend. Anyway, I'm gonna head off. Thanks for joining me, Doomtrain Inc. and Melwan, if you're both still there, and anyone who happened to be lurking in the chat. I'm gonna head off, so have a good rest of your day. Bye bye.
Thank you.